Tom Zenk is on the line. Tom, how you doing today?
Good. How you doing, Dave? It's a little cold here in Minneapolis.
Yeah, it's weather must be horrible in a lot of the country.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if you've heard, but all the WF guys are stuck in Little Rock. Can't get out of the airport.
Why? Sex scandal?
No. None of the planes can take off.
Oh my God! Where is my grandson?
Your grandson is on the phone.
My grandson on the line. My God.
Yeah.
Your grandson's on the line right now.
How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good.
You ready to rock and roll? Warren Zevon, Jesse Ventura. Everyone's in the news. What's going on, Dave? Talk to me.
Well, tell us about Jesse, because that's big. That's the big news in your state.
Oh boy, is it ever! God.
Now what? Go. You know, one of the things. I think that the Minneapolis, does the media in the Twin Cities, would you say that they bend over backwards for him, or they're out to get him, or is it somewhere in between?
Oh, geez. Dial up KQRS, KQ92. Used to be in Golden Valley. Oh, boy. They just have fun with him. Drive time, morning radio. I get up at 5 in the morning, and they just grill him. But, they just, his age, his demographics is just young kids. You know what I mean? Blue-collar, White Sox kids. 18 to 29-year-olds. I think he led them, and he got 46% of that age category in the vote. He surprised them. Yeah, he's all over, boy. They're watching him real close.
You think he'll be reelected if he runs again?
Well, I don't know. I think they were sick of the second-generation politicians or this Norm Coleman from New York. I didn't vote for Jesse, and there was a Democrat, Humphrey. And,
Humphrey, yeah.
Yeah, he surprised everyone. He just was the dark horse in the race, and he went out there and, kissed babies and shook hands like a wrestler. Just was, he knew how to work the crowd. He was good.
Yeah.
He did a good job. He's the only governor I got cash back from. He did something for me. And he's over with the people, and the state has a surplus, so Jesse's a good guy.
So now, what's your thoughts as far as him working for Vince?
Jesse can do what he wants. I respect him. I've seen many times worse than Jesse. Okay, he's in the same category I'd put Mick Foley and Owen Hart on. He's supporting his family. He's a good guy. Okay, and he's the governor. But the XFL deal, he knows about Vince McMahon. He worked with him, right? He knows him real good.
He probably knows about him better than we do.
And it was in the paper here, if I'm not mistaken. I think I still clipped the headline somewhere. He got $830,000. He was owed royalties. I don't know how you forgive a guy for that, and then to get a lawsuit over that. He's got a nice wife and kids and family. Why would Vince want to disturb his life? I don't know. I would choose not to work for him. But I'm thinking Jesse hooked him for money.
I'm sure. It's got to be. I don't know the numbers. It's got to be. It's got to be huge money.
Huh?
Well, the thing is, you don't want to talk about the numbers?
I think he was quoted as saying, I wouldn't work for $10,000. Someone accused him of that, and I'm not going to work that cheap. I don't know.
Oh, Jesse's the star of the XFL. I mean, the whole league is being built around him.
Yeah,
so
Jim Ross is a better announcer, right? Oh, that's wrestling. Sorry.
Yeah, he might be a better football announcer, too. We don't know. Hey, Jim Ross probably knows football better than Jesse.
Yeah, because he sure liked all the boys that played football.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he liked the rest. He liked the wrestlers that were football players.
Tom, WCW is about to be sold.
Yep.
Any minute now.
Is it a done deal? I heard it was a done deal through Terry Taylor, through another guy, but I can't reveal the source.
I heard 99% done this afternoon. So.
You know better than anyone.
It's pretty close.
Well, good.
I could say that Ted Turner himself kind of wanted not to do the sale until February, because Ted Turner's he doesn't really follow wrestling that close.
No.
But, he kind of follows the news, and he thought that come February, the WWF would start being vulnerable, so that might be a chance for a turnaround, because, they're going to devote so much energy to the XFL. So he was kind of wanting to hold on to it till February, and, hope that would be a chance to, make a comeback, but, It's not going to happen. I think it's going to be.
Look at the comeback they made when they jumped to TNN. That was the last big,
Yep.
Well, I don't think a faltering WWF helps WCW. WCW is only going to be helped by putting out a good product.
That's right. But how come they never came up with this? Vince runs the Northeast, and WCW should, stick below the Mason-Dixon line. Run that angle, okay? Big two superpowers, Ted down south, and we push our kids and do the Southern gimmick, okay? That's what they do anyway. Who was the first guy that ever got a push in the South until Eric came along? What guy from the north? What Yankee got to push down south? You ever think about that? Can you name it offhand, Dave?
Not offhand. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, you scramble now. I got time.
Luger Buffalo.
Yeah, Luger Buffalo, but he was a Florida boy.
Originally, yeah, that's true.
Built like a Greek god. My goodness, he's a nice.
So what was missing? And you know him well.
Huh?
Luger had the look.
Yeah, he did have the look, but he couldn't work.
Yeah, that's the problem.
You know what I mean? He couldn't. No, but he always made big money, so he was in the clique. Okay, he was playing the game.
Yeah,
so that's as plain as I can say it.
He's still around.
Yeah, he's
how long?
One of the best.
How long do you think? That's amazing. Some of those guys.
Yeah.
He can look like that?
Yeah.
Oh, that he could look like that at 42? That's tough, too. But he does, all kidding aside.
Yeah. And
Lex Luger does.
This is entertainment.
Yeah, I know. But Lex Luger seriously does have amazing genetics, and you know that.
I
mean, we always joke about we always joke about genetics whenever we talk because whenever you hear about like these guys with the physiques, we all know it's so much of it's roids.
Yeah.
But Lex Luger, like you could fill a person full of roids and they can't look like Lex Luger if they don't have the right genes.
No. Nope. And he works really hard at it. He is really a hard worker. His body, I like the narcissist gimmick myself. He could really play that off good. It was a natural for him. Not that he's like that, but I mean, he knows how to play the part. He's funny. I mean, I got along with him, rode with him. I have nothing bad. I got along with him in the ring. He never hurt me. He was good to work with. But I think the aesthetics of his ring movement and, his athletic ability maybe was not good to drawing money, or guys maybe had envy because he looked so damn good. He was an imposing guy.
One of the things now, though, is just as he's gotten older, he's gotten really slow, and he doesn't want to take bumps.
Yeah.
And it's hard to watch his matches.
Well, you think it's more a lack of athletic ability, or just not ever really wanting to go all out?
Oh, I don't think it's lack of athletic ability. He's decent. He's a good athlete, don't you think? You've been in the ring with him, so.
Yeah. Well, do you think he didn't want to go all out, or what? Or was he groomed by Flair and Flair built him? That's the whole thing that it comes. Sting, Luger, Flair. I see three, the triangle there, okay? That's what I got figured out, okay? They got something going on there. They're all,
They're always there.
Who made them?
Flair made them.
What?
Flair made Sting and Luger.
He made
especially Sting.
So too.
He didn't make him good enough. He didn't last.
I couldn't have a match like that. Flair can, the broomstick deal. You've heard that cliche. I mean,
many times on this show lately.
What?
Many times on this show lately.
Yeah, Nature's the best. You know the deal. Vince should run up northeast, and they should run the south. They could get the best of both worlds, because there is an audience, and that's a hardcore wrestling fan that I like. Because what you point out in your newsletter that what was it, David Copperfield special didn't draw, so there's a 2.0 to 3.0 rating down there, just there for the taking. It'll enhance Vince's show and WCW's show. That's why this Bischoff thing. You think that's going to work? What's your honest opinion?
If I was betting, I would bet against it.
I would too.
I hope it works because I think the business needs it really bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's going to have to come up with something that he's going to have to come up with something to make it work, because one of the things is that whoever goes in there, unless they got a ton of money, it's not going to be good there, because I think this company's going to need to lose a ton of money for a year or two to turn it around. And the other thing that they're going to need is they're going to need to create some new star that isn't there, and I don't know who it is. I don't know, where you find it. I mean, because Goldberg snuck in there when they weren't looking, and all of a sudden he was over.
Yeah.
But that's what, I mean, not that Goldberg made their big boom period, but Goldberg was a pretty big part of it.
Yeah, but
and then they kind of squandered him.
Yeah. But who did they have work with them? Did Flair ever say, hey, I can help this guy out? Did Hogan ever put his foot forward? I mean, the guys that are really the smart guys, the real workers.
Hogan worked with them once. And
that's mighty big of them.
And let's see, Flair worked with them on some house shows. They never did work a big match program, but I think Flair got hurt before they ever could do something, or Goldberg got hurt or something, because they were building in that direction and they never went there. And then a little while ago, when Flair was injured, they did a spot where Goldberg injured David, and it looked like, Rick, they showed the camera on Rick's face.
Yep.
It was when they were in Australia, I think it was. It was Australia. And it looked like they were going to go to that, and now, now they don't have Rick wrestling, and it's another one of those angles that's just been forgotten.
Flair going into business for himself, though.
What?
It may have been Flair going into business for himself.
You're right, it may have been.
To do something.
Yeah.
They really have the camera really catch something that subtle to build towards something. Never.
But they should all the time. If it was on WWF, you wouldn't be saying that, would you?
No, I mean, they should, but they don't have a track record of doing that, so I can't see. When I saw Flair, looking at Goldberg, it was like, this is awesome, but in the back of my mind, it's like, they can't have been planning this.
Rick saw the opportunity and grabbed it, but they didn't do anything with it, so a lot of good it did.
Yeah,
The one thing with Rick, it's kind of sad, is all those years, 30 years in the business,
Yep.
the promoters always wanted to cut his hair, and he always said no.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, somebody cut his hair, and it was Russo. And by the time Flair came back, Russo was gone.
Yeah.
You got a better hairdo out of it, though.
You dick. My God, I like your style. Sabu, my boy. Very good, Brian.
So now, what's your thoughts as far as if you were put in charge of WCW?
That'll never happen.
Well, I know that.
Yeah.
It won't happen with me or Brian, but we're going to try to come up with some ideas too.
Yeah, but I like your stuff, though. Don't get me wrong. It's just my opinion. I lived the deal. I saw it. Okay.
I mean, is there anything that you would do right now as far as would you just run a lot of? I mean, one of the things they probably will end up doing is running in a region just to save on costs.
Yeah.
Have we ever plugged Tom's letter on our website?
No, let's go do that.
Well, don't let me twist your rubber arm.
Yeah. No, you mean the letter that he wrote on the thing? I plugged it. Yeah. We haven't plugged it on this show though. That's right. That's right. Yeah. There's it would be in the feature archives, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Feature archives. Tom Zenk wrote a letter. It's kind of like a letter to Brad Siegel, just some ideas of what should be done. The only problem is kind of would have been better if you read it, if Brad Siegel read it and actually read it about 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Because I think now they've kind of thrown their hands up in the air and just said, somebody did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, just that's entertainment, just putting the thoughts out there. I just want to be on record, I know the deal. It's just too bad, other guys don't. They can make it so much better, and it's kind of sad. Dusty Rhodes and what happened to Ric Flair, all these guys, they missed the deal. The egos, you know what I mean? No security, and they've got families, and the Pillmans, and it weighs heavy on my mind sometimes, Dave. It really does.
This is from I think it's Dave Scully in New Zealand. And New Zealand is losing Nitro, and he wants Nitro back. New Zealand gets all the WCW pay-per-views, but if they don't have Nitro, the pay-per-views won't make any sense. So he's trying to get Sky to broadcast Nitro because it would help the buy rates of their pay-per-views, which actually makes sense in theory. So he said, if fans could email Sky at skytv.co.nz with their wishes to get Nitro back in New Zealand, it would greatly help the cause. So, for those of you in New Zealand, just read that for you. Oh, okay. We're back to the action with Tom Zenk. And right before we left, we were talking about WCW, and, you had written a couple of things. What's your thoughts as far as... you had a lot of ideas as far as changes, you would like to make in the business. There's something I read, because the day before yesterday, when... A-Rod signed like a $252 million contract. And, it was like, where does this come from? And as much money as, and a lot of the wrestlers now are making really good money, as compared to in the past. Nevertheless, as compared to certainly baseball players, football players, basketball players, they're still not in the league. And I think that the reason largely is, lack of unionization. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. You know what I think? I think they need a union. I think Ventura already knows it. He went, and he's quoted in Playboy as saying that hookers need a union. Prostitution, right? Prostitution.
Well, if they do, then wrestlers should get one.
Yeah, prostitution. So does he. Prostitution, wrestling, XFL players, they should all have a union. The NFL has a players' union, and Vince, I'm sure he's going to do the right thing. He's learned his lesson, right? And I'm sure Jesse's going to push for it because he feels strongly. He's got a SAG card, right, Dave?
Yes, he does.
Okay. So he knows the value of unions, just like Jesse's demographics, the 18 to 29-year-old voters, 60%. And he brought out the new voters, okay? I mean, Dave, let's be honest. With all the bodies piling up, what's it going to be, the Hotel California of the XFL? Dead players with Dick Ebersol, Governor Ventura, and Vince McMahon there? Huh? How many bodies have piled up? 25 in the last 5 years? Or,
When wrestling?
Well, is there going to be a double standard? Is it going to be the same rules for wrestlers as the XFL? Are they going to be subjected?
In what sense? As far as he's not drug testing the football players, I know that.
Oh,
he's made that clear.
Does he drug test the wrestlers?
Of course.
You really?
No. I mean, in the contract, he has the right to do so.
Yeah.
I think under extreme circumstances, he might on occasion. But I mean, as far as like realistic, regular drug testing, no.
Right.
No, he doesn't.
Well, isn't Ventura, Hart, Goldberg, they all, they're all pro-union, right? So it's an open and shut case. They've got the tools, and I think I read some on the internet the other day that Piper, and I only heard good things.
Piper's real strong on the union right now.
But see, sometimes in life, you get older and you see things for, a different change. Different isn't always bad. Different is different. Okay, so I read something that impressed me really about Roddy, but I heard good things about him from Rick Martel, and I met him. He was, a very nice guy. But, yeah, they should, for sure. I mean, we're not independent contractors. They tell you when to be there. If you're not there on time, they can fine you. Like, Oli fined me $2,500 or whatever, right? I missed the show. What? Oh, yeah. I never sold it. So they went nuts. Okay, I just didn't sell anything. I played things in reserve with them. That's a psychology. You don't sell. I learned that from Vince McMahon. I was there before Dusty, before Flair. I saw it firsthand. He's got a big machine. He's real smart. I mean, yeah, of course there should be a union. My goodness. You go to the town. You have to be there on time. You have to wrestle. They give you cheap flights or whatever. Does Vince fly his guys first class like WCW? And these guys have the nerve. Why don't they treat Vince like that? They should get a reality check and all flood the market. They all have to go up and work for Vince. What does he pay? Not $1.6 million, if your figures are correct.
Not guaranteed. Vince doesn't
buy
have
a new plane too for himself.
Vince bought a new plane, yes.
Brian, my God, he always had good taste. Yeah.
Well, the thing with Vince though is that he pays what he needs to pay because, I mean, if there was another group and they were like a few years ago, that's when Vince's salaries escalated. And that's when he started giving guaranteed contracts because he had to do it to keep his talent. Now, there's who in WWF wants to go to WCW? Nobody. So he doesn't have to. I mean, the new guarantee. He doesn't have to give big guarantees. I mean, I'm sure that the guarantee that Rock is under. I mean, I'm sure it's quite a bit of money, but it's probably nothing compared to what he's actually making. But he's the one thing with McMahon is that unlike with Bischoff, who when things got bad, the company just lost so much money because they had all those big financial obligations.
Yeah.
If WWF goes down theoretically in the next year, Vince's guarantees are low enough that it's not gonna he'll be fine.
Oh yeah, he's real close.
He's not overextended, I don't think. I mean, the XFL is going to be a loser when at least at the beginning. I mean, they even will say that at the beginning. I mean, long term, who knows?
Yeah.
And the one thing is that the WWF New York, if WWF doesn't become a hot thing and becomes kind of cold, that's the thing that'll dry up the quickest. Is that theme restaurant thing for a cold product?
Yeah.
I mean, right now it's doing well because WWF's still a hot product.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I read in your newsletter that your Bischoff's new group. I don't mean to segue into this, but it just came to me that Bischoff might run something out of there. Can they have the WCW? Would they have a grill out there, or did that close down?
That closed down quite a bit.
No.
Couple months ago.
Oh my.
It was like yeah. Well, it's like how do you do a theme restaurant for a cold product?
You got it.
Plus, they never even bothered to try and do anything to promote it on TV. Nothing.
No, compared to WWF. The one thing WWF, they never miss a trick. I mean, we're going to be inundated with XFL stuff until it's coming out of our ears, whether we like it or not, because he knows how to promote, and you know what I mean. Like with the bodybuilding. I mean, you remember when they did the bodybuilding? There was all those bodybuilders were on wrestling. They tried to give them all the rub. I mean, it didn't work.
No.
But I mean, nobody. But he gave it a good try. He didn't just go, okay, I got this idea. I'm going to own this thing, and then I'm going to let it die on the vine like WCW, will do with the Nitro Grill. As mentioned a few times.
Yep.
The other thing that was so bad with the Nitro Grill was that when they would remember, Brian, when they would do the promos of the Nitro Grill, they would show it empty.
Yeah. Same thing they do with autograph signings. And you know what? They used to always do those autograph signings like 3-Count or whoever would be there, and there'd be no fans. And then, a few months later, we would get all these emails from people going, yeah, I just went to, so-and-so's autograph signing, and there were 15 people there.
Yeah, Billy Kidman's out there on the road signing an autograph, and there's like nobody there, and it's really sad.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Yeah, Vince is the best. Yeah, he's clever. Yeah. And so are the politicians now. They can't even get the count right, but they can send a man to the moon, and we can get computers. We can go here to New Zealand, here to Australia, here to New York, here to you.
That was something? That election. You know what the thing about the election is? I think it opened everyone's eyes because we never had a close election like that in my lifetime. I guess like the last one would have been Nixon and Kennedy in '60.
Yep.
So that was before, but that was like before our time.
Yeah, of course.
And the thing on that is like until this year, I never knew how screwed up elections were.
Yeah.
I mean, when you hear about like different kind of vote, all these issues that came up, it was like really scary to me. I thought that voting was easy. You punch a vote, they count it up, and whoever wins wins. And I didn't think it was like professional wrestling.
Hilarious. Like you saw these newspaper articles with photos of people voting, and it's like these people putting an actual real piece of paper inside like a cardboard box with a slit in the top. And I thought, that's how people voted when Abe Lincoln was being elected. They can't get this thing on computers now?
You know what? Vern Gagne runs the voting booths. That's the problem. How's Vern doing anyway? Do you ever hear anything about him?
I have no idea. He just, once in a while, they give him, maybe they had something on with the Baron and the Old Timers, I guess, maybe about a month ago on TV locally. And Ed Sharkey's been in the city pages. I think it's on the website. And just a cute article about Eddie that tells it like it is about the carnies, and that's where he started the carnival and the circus, not the carnies. And I learned I had to go to Eddie's camp, and I had to go to Vern's camp. So I learned it from a carny side, plus I learned the respect part from Vern Gagne that I had to get in there with Brad Rangens. Made me puke, made me, had you in tears, and had you tap out and submit. Monster.
Yeah.
So I learned, they beat me and paid me $3,000 a week at WCW. I never had any emotional attachment. I stirred the pot a little bit. Yeah, it was entertainment. The boys, look what they did to the business. What I'm saying now is, yeah, I think I was right all along. You dispute me, Vern, I don't know. He's old. Greg, I guess he's selling cars out on 494 at Metro Mitsubishi.
Okay, yeah, somebody asked about that, and that's what I thought he was doing.
Yeah. But see, well. The funny thing about wrestling is Hulk Hogan, these other guys, fall victim to the same thing. Remember when Nick Bockwinkel wouldn't drop the belt to Hogan?
Is that what it was? I just knew that there was like all kinds of politics and everything going on, and then Hogan went and left.
Yeah, and then he signed with Vince, and that started the whole, segue to the WWF. But then billionaire Ted bought into the company, and then McMahon was crying like Vern Gagne. He stole my talent. I can't compete with a billionaire. Now we got billionaire Vince. What's he going to do? He's bought the XFL.
Yeah.
He's bought the XFL, and the wrestlers, it's all built on their back, once again, like the bodybuilding, Dave. You know the deal. You're the smartest guy in wrestling. You hear from everyone.
Well, one of the things that's going to be real interesting is when Vince goes against the XFL, is that any talent that Vince can make a star, they're going to be in the NFL the next season. Well, so he's not going to have long-term deals. I don't think he's going to be able to have long-term deals with these guys because everyone that goes in the XFL, I was reading, everyone that, they're going in there. They're going to make between $35,000 and $50,000 guaranteed. Plus, they can make a little bit more if they win games, like $2,500 a week per win. So let's say if they get 7 wins, that's $15 more grand a year. So you're topping out at about $65,000.
Yep.
Okay, to play professional football, which is a pretty tough sport. Now, all of those guys, they're beating their bodies up for $65,000 a year, which is better money than they would make playing in the Arena League, which is probably their other alternative. But the reason they're doing that is because the lowest paid guy in the whole NFL makes $193, and if you're a star in the NFL, you can make millions, and that's the dream they're chasing. They're not chasing the XFL championship as their dream. They're chasing an NFL roster spot.
Well, how are their deals set up? Is it like a contract, a 1-year deal, or what?
I don't know. I don't know, but I know that as far as the agents and everything.
Do a 3-year deal, so if someone gets huge one season, they'll have 2 more.
I'm sure that they would want to, but I'm sure that most of the players won't sign it because then you're signing, 3 years for football players. It's almost their whole career. And then you're signing away your career.
Yeah, but if you don't really have a bunch of other options,
I know that, the agents, are, if they were to do, okay, but here's the thing, Brian. If they were to do long-term deals, the second rung of players would play in Canada because Canada you can always escape to go to the NFL because, you'll be making, instead of making 45, you make 30, let's say. But you got a chance to go to the big time. If you're a player who has a chance to make 193 with a good year, and you make 30 this year, or you go for something where you're going to guaranteed 45 for 3 straight years, I would take the risk.
Yeah, but I think if everything works out and he sees that this is happening, I think he'll probably just offer, like $100,000 a year for 3 years.
Well, I mean, eventually, if he wants to keep his talent, he's going to have to pay more competitive prices, or the NFL's going to take everyone. I mean, I think that's an inevitability. What he's going to do, we'll find out. Let's hit the phones. Let's go to Dave in New York. Dave, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Got a couple questions for Tom, but first, I kind of got a question for all of you. Wade Keller posted on his website when someone asked about what exactly the term pro resu meant, that he thought it was a snobbish term and that it sounded kind of elitist and kind of like a clubhouse term, and that he didn't like people to use the term and he'd rather that people call it Japanese wrestling. What do you think of that?
I never used the term pro resu because in my entire life until about the last 3 years, and this is from someone who's been in Japan 11 times,
Really?
I never really heard the term in my whole life. And it's kind of like a thing, I mean, I guess it's like it is sort of like how they kind of say pro wrestling there, just because of the way they enunciate things.
Yeah.
So really, I don't know. I mean, to me, I never used the term. I never had any. When I was in Japan, the people who spoke English, the English-speaking Japanese people, never used the term pro resu to me. So it never became a part of my lexicon. And other people can use it. I'm not going to say it's a snobbish term, but all I know is that I never used it, and I never heard it used there by people who spoke English.
Did anyone use the non-abbreviated term, or what?
What do you mean?
What is it? How is it? Professional naru resu ringu?
See, no, I never heard that one either. And
Okay,
when
I transliterated professional wrestling.
I don't know, like Tom, you went to Japan for Baba many times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just pro wrestling, right?
Yeah, pro wrestling. Jigsaw. They called me Tom Zenk, okay? They just wanted to get along, and they wanted to learn about Western culture, make a friend of the United States. They could come visit you, whatever. They gave you gifts. You sign, please, sign, please. They were the most gracious, wonderful fans you could ever believe. Very respectful.
Just as an example, in the way things translate literally, I remember when there was a book there. I just remember because it always cracked me up.
Yeah.
Manny Fernandez used to wrestle as a Raging Bull for Crockett. And they had like one of those books that like had every American wrestler, and they called him the Raisin Bowl, okay? Because that's how they translated it. But to me, it's sort of like, I wouldn't go call him, Raisin Bowl, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, Puro Resu would probably be a Japanese enunciation for pro wrestling. So why don't you just say pro wrestling because that's the real term?
Yeah.
Well, it's just quicker to type.
I mean, either way, I don't care one way or the other. I don't consider it a snobbish term. I just know that like all those times I went to Japan, like Japanese people didn't go, pro resu to me. So I figured if they don't say it, then why should I say it?
No one did.
See, but the thing that got to me is that it's almost a double standard, because if you think pro resu snobbish, then wouldn't lucha libre be snobbish?
No, not really, because that's
because it's a different style.
Well, because Lucha Libre is a Mexican world, whereas Pro Resu is kind of like a bad enunciation of an English term.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Lucha Libre that's the Spanish word. Pro Resu is not. I mean, what Japanese would be for pro wrestling would be, or the word wrestle. It's probably just wrestling, because it's an American. The sports evolve. A lot of sports terminology evolved from where the sport first started. Like if you're in judo, a lot of the terminology in judo, like ippon and things like that, they're all Japanese words because the sport has Japanese origin. So, and since pro wrestling is American oriented, you hear the moves like you listen to Japanese broadcasts and they'll brainbuster and vertical suplex, and the names of the American holds are in English, and the names like enziguri, which was a move that they invented but popularized in Japan. And some of those moves, that sometimes they come here and we use their terms because they were invented, like Hurricane Rana. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Uranage. Yeah, because those are moves that got popularized in their culture. So, I don't know. I don't have a problem with Lucha Libre.
Okay, Tom.
Yes.
I was wondering, can you do a good Tommy Rich impression? Cause
hey, baby, what's up? Tommy Rich from the South. Rick Martel was always
my partner when we ran together down in Alabama and Atlanta. Oh, Saturday, baby.
Because I was thinking about how, since you're able to do that great Jim Barnett impression, and since you're able to do...
Oh, God. Don't.
Come on, bring it on me. I heard there was going to be a stooge from the office, so you bring it on, because I could tell your voice was nervous. Now, listen, bring it on, lady. Go ahead.
No, he's a regular call. He's a regular caller, Tom.
Oh, I figured.
Tom, you know, you watch Edge and Christian on WWF from time to time, don't you?
A little bit, yeah.
When I see them, I see kind of like what could have been done with you and Pillman and WCW as smart-ass heels, because you have the same personality that they do, but you just kind of were never, you were never put in that position. Pillman kind of had that chance with Austin, but they nixed that one too.
Why do you think that is?
Why they nixed Pillman and Austin,
yeah.
or why you guys never turned?
Both scenarios. You tell me. See, this is what's so goofy, and this is what bothers me, or why I got involved in this. How could I be so wrong? I was in the business. What's going on here? Austin and Pillman, myself and Pillman. I mean, what? What's going on there? No push? What? The top guys couldn't compete? What? Afraid of friendly competition? What? That's the whole.
Well, I mean, the whole thing with Pillman and Austin was a really weird deal because they were a very strong team, and I just remember one day it was like, well, we're going to break them up because they're not over, and I was thinking like,
what?
They were the only thing that was over at the time.
Yeah, you got
Was it Greg Gagne? Wasn't Gagne? You were there. Was it Gagne who came up to Pillman and just goes, we're going to have to break up your team because, well, you're not over. And I was just thinking, like, what the hell's that?
I don't know if it was Greg Gagne. I never heard that story, but it's like, what? What's this? Me and Pillman, after Capital Combat, just broken up. The match that Pillman and I had in Jacksonville. What happened there? You didn't see it? It was a natural? What? What are you talking about?
That's right. You had a good match, and then you never even followed up on it.
Oh, yeah. So, you can be a hypocrite and say, drugs. You can say dope. You can say steroids, pods, Valium, Halcyon, Decadrablin, testosterone, Primobolan, all the stuff that guys had access to. Whatever. All the hypocrites in the business. No, they plain didn't pick up on talent, okay? For whatever their reasons, I believe it's a cultural difference in the South. And didn't Dusty say on your show that Jim Hurd wrecked a Southern family business or tradition, if you will. Didn't he say that? Wasn't he quoted as saying that?
I don't remember if he said those exact words, but yeah, not too far from that, sure.
Exactly. And they all, Bill Watts, who'd he bring
said it just like it too.
What?
He said it just like that too.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, that's what they got going on there. So Pillman and Austin, I mean, look at Austin's work ethic. Look at Brian Pillman's work ethic. As the little guy, Brian always was an overachiever. Me, I had it on autopilot. I was trained by Sharkey, the Carney, master manipulator, very smart guy, and Vern, which I learned respect for the business. I was happy to be there. I still have respect to the business. I think it's a shame that they blew the only opportunity, if you say the deal is 99% done with Bischoff and company, and that won't last. He could break the U.S. government. Give him 18 months. Anyway, back to the story. No, I think they wasted a terrible, terrible thing. And talent, and Brian's dead. And I never thought about Brian, but he died in Minneapolis here, and I drive by that hotel all the time. There's not a day that I wake that I don't think about Pillman and laugh. I had so much fun with him. He had so much to give. But, they did some nasty things in the wrestling business.
The other thing with Brian is that it really got to him that he was pigeonholed as this guy who couldn't work on top. And, he wanted to work on top so bad.
Oh, yeah.
And, it ended up, like after he should have probably stopped wrestling, he came back on all the painkillers and everything with the bad ankle where he really, he couldn't run.
Yeah.
He couldn't, he could barely walk through the airport. And he was out there taking he would take crazy bumps on his face because he knew he couldn't take them on his feet, but to get a good match. And I was really sad at the end, and, it ended up doing him in.
Yeah, do you see that's the whole psychology, what happened there. It's just a shame. Nobody saw that. That's the need for unions, okay? That's the need. No one saw it. I could see it. The last time I talked to him, I knew he was in trouble. We talked for like 2-3 hours. And, it's really sad. And I heard a lot of things about WCW because I wasn't there, and the psychology and different guys. And, it's too bad. It was just like, what a waste. In a downward spiral he couldn't kick out of. It's too bad.
Yeah. Let's go to Matt in Vancouver. Matt, what's going on?
Hey, how are you guys doing today?
Good.
Very good.
Well, it's good. Do you guys think that there's somebody in Time Warner that puts some person that's not in wrestling that really wants to destroy WCW?
No.
In Time Warner?
I think
Yeah,
not in Time Warner.
That is not a wrestling fan that says, I don't want WCW to ever succeed, so we'll send somebody down there to make it fail.
No. I think that it's. I don't think that they have. I don't think that they have any awareness of what goes on there, and that's one of the reasons why it ended up the way it did.
Yeah, but Brad Siegel didn't have any good ideas to turn it around.
But he's not a wrestling guy. How's he going to? Unless you follow. If you're an outsider, you think wrestling is two guys in funny costumes, like play fighting, and to make the business go, it's a lot harder than that. And so, it's like Brad Siegel's not going to know. No outsider. We saw it with Jim Herd. We saw it with, Kip Fry and a lot of the people. Yeah. An outsider is not going to know what to do, and they're going to get conned by the guys because they'll talk to some veteran who knows how to talk. And some of these guys really know how to talk, and they'll charm them, and they'll talk their way into their heart, and they'll go, oh, yeah, he's my buddy. I mean, look at the guys that have Yeah. You look at the guys that have been there, that have maintained top positions, and I mean, just throw out a name, Nash. We go from Booker to Booker. Every Booker will tell you that Nash is their best friend in the company. I mean, and that's to Nash's advantage. That's why he always keeps his spot and kind of like a leader of the wrestlers. But at the same time, it's like Nash on top. You've got your team leader who's does as little as he can, doesn't work hard in the ring, doesn't give up his spot. And, it's a tough deal.
But some of those guys are so good, they not only work the outsiders, but they work all the other guys.
But if you're the leader, wouldn't you want to lead by example, right? That's what I do at work, and I got a great crew. You lead by example, but I guess it's the values that you grow up with, maybe, right?
Isn't it just out for yourself? Nash is always out for himself.
Well, you said it. I didn't. He's a very entertaining guy. He can give stand-up routines, and I mean, the things he says about the business, going out, have a few beers, and then you go wrestle and you have a few beers. What? What's that? I didn't learn that. Okay.
Is Vince Russo's still at home, right?
He's still at home, yeah.
Yeah. Has he got his pay cut yet?
No.
If he got a concussion.
I know the story. But they don't. As far as I know, they haven't cut his pay.
So they won't fire him next week. They won't FedEx him.
Oh God, he probably got like a 3-year deal or something, didn't he? That was quite a coup. You got to give Russo credit though. I mean, he jumped at the right time.
Yep.
I mean, he saw Vince going down. He was a year too early. Okay.
Yeah.
He saw it happening. He knew that the overexposure of the television was going to kill WWF, and it may, it may in a year, but he was a year ahead. But ultimately, he was right. Went to WCW, cashed in, which is what everyone does.
Yep.
They gave him, whatever it was, they gave him this great contract.
Yep.
And he got everyone fooled that he was the one who took it from a 1.7 to a 6. And, people believed him. He talked the talk. It was a great talker. I remember when he was first on the show, he came off so good. But then when he was put in that position, as soon as he was put in that position, all of a sudden it became everyone's fault. But the thing is, the stuff that he did himself. I mean, nobody told him to do a tequila bottle battle royal, and nobody told him to have like Ed Ferrara feuding with Medusa was entertainment. You know what I mean? Like the stuff that he says, JJ wouldn't let me do this, Gary Juster wouldn't let me do this. It was like the stuff he wouldn't let him do was the stuff that was worse than the stuff that he did.
Yeah, but wouldn't you point the finger at Ed Ferrara and Bill Banks that went with them? Because all three of those guys came from the WWF.
What?
No, Bill Bush. What does he know? He was an accountant, right?
Yeah.
Bill Bush was an accountant in the company, yeah.
Siegel has an arts or a history degree, right? What does he have?
Well, whatever it is, but he was. If you didn't even grow up a wrestling fan, you're in trouble. Yeah, and even if you grew up a wrestling fan, it's tough.
Mentals and carnies, mentals and retards can figure out carnies. Can't you spot a carny? How about these guys with degrees? What's up with that in the South? How come none of these guys, these suits, could ever figure it out in 10 years?
I think
they hire the right people. So
I think they did at one point. That's why they hired Kip Fry to run the company. But again, it was someone who didn't have any wrestling background.
Exactly. But
at the beginning, remember like with Herd and with Kip Fry, they didn't want a wrestling person. Then they went to Watts, who was a wrestling person, and then Watts was just like Watts was just from a different era. I mean, Watts was brilliant in his time. But he couldn't fit into an environment where you have to be politically correct, so to speak.
Exactly.
He just couldn't. No. And also he was used to being Watts.
He's king.
Watts was used to being such a bully.
He's a king, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, And you know, he couldn't work very well where he didn't have autonomy. You know, I mean, how long? Watch didn't last with Vince either.
No, no.
So Bischoff, who's with Bischoff? Who's going to buy WCW?
We'll know when the sale happens. I think when the sale happens, we'll really hear a lot. But until the day it's actually sold, I mean, anything you hear is all speculation anyway. So I don't want to speculate because I don't know the answer. I just know that, like, you know, once it happens, I'm sure we'll get a lot of answers real fast.
Is it also speculation that Reno Maro has been talking with the WWF?
More than speculation, absolutely true.
Why would they hire her back after the?
Well, they're not going to hire her back. But you know, Brian and I were just talking about it earlier in the show. Why they would have no interest in Tori Wilson, but they would be at least talking about Reno Maro. I mean, Tori Wilson,
who can't even wrestle.
Tori's 10 years younger.
Yeah.
Sue the company.
Fresh face, never sued the company. Yeah.
But what's her name was in Playboy, right?
Reno Maro was in like the best-selling issue of Playboy in the last, I don't know, since Farrah Fawcett or something,
She's
right?
a Christian woman. I know she's from the South. But, yeah, I'd go with Tori Wilson, too. She'd get my vote. And then I'd take that Kidman. He lives with her.
Yeah.
Take them both, because they don't know how to use them at WCW. They have nothing for Kidman. A good-looking kid like that, sure, they could both get over. Do the deal up there. Vince know how to use them. It's like Benoit. That they wasted Benoit's youth down in WCW.
Yeah.
They don't know how to use anyone. Get rid of them.
Yeah.
So with Jesse Ventura, do you think finally the WWF will start to get a union, or do you think that they'll get a union when Vince is like really down in like 10 years?
Never. I like to bring up the fact that that's the right thing to do. You know, put a little steam on them.
Yeah, but you know, Vince will never voluntarily allow it to happen. I mean, it's going to be something where, that's going to be something where the guys are going to have to do it on their own, and I don't see it happening.
It's not going to happen when Vince is on top of the world and they really don't have any other options.
That's right.
Well, you know, Tom, this is another thing.
What?
This has got to be ever, even though there are guys in the WWF that are making seven figures and a few guys in WCW there are, this is the worst time ever to come up in the business. I mean, ECW's dying, WCW's in question. Vince has got everyone by the balls, you know, when it comes to contracts.
Yeah.
I mean, look at poor Jerry Lynn. You know, he's coming off of all of these great matches, and you know, all he wants to do is get paid and wrestle.
Yeah, just
and you know, it's like they got him by the balls. What can you say?
I don't know. I feel bad for him because a talent like that just wastes. It's like, oh no, it's terrible. I'd hate to be a wrestler now.
So with Eric Bischoff helping the first boom period, do you guys think that he'll be able to help the second boom period if this contract thing does go down?
I hope he does. I hope really bad he does. We'll have to wait and see. That's all I can say because I don't know. I mean, Eric, I wouldn't have given Eric good odds.
The factors are different, though.
The factors are. I wouldn't have given Eric. Yeah, I wouldn't have given Eric good odds the first time, and he did make it work for a couple of years, and then it didn't.
Yeah, but when he buys it, if he does, you know Hogan will be on Monday Nitro next week.
You don't know. There's rumors going. There's a million rumors going around about Hogan. I mean, I would think there's a good shot of that. You were around Hogan in, I guess, in the 80s during his big glory period in the WWF.
Yep.
Where do you think he learned? Because you know Hogan, when it comes to being manipulative and being like a carny and everything, I mean, he's as good as they come.
Listen, okay, Dave, listen to me for a minute. Just give me the floor. I'm trying to determine. I was laying in bed the other night, thinking about the show coming up because I did a wrestling radio show, and I'm trying to determine who made the other a better liar, Hulk or Vince. Okay, maybe that will be solved sometime as the chicken and the egg, right? Which is still a mystery. Which came first?
Well, Vince was around the business from childhood because of his father.
Yes.
He got control in '82.
Yep.
Let's see, Hogan
was stolen from Vern.
Hogan was stolen from Vern in '84.
Okay.
Then I think they both learned it. They both really learned.
It's like
they both learned at the same time. It looks like.
So then those kind of guys were like the kind of guys that our mothers warned us about, being too smart for their own good. I mean,
yeah, but they kind of made it, and they last. Look at Hogan.
They've used it for their own good.
I heard one of the boys describe a promoter he worked for, and he said his desire was to make wrestlers into robots, get them hooked on drugs, steroids, narcotics. Except he ultimately succumbed to the temptations of the various tools he was using on the wrestlers. Now, what do you think about that statement? This is from one of the boys. I'm going, what? That was kind of heavy. But he worked an old-timer, and he had a lot of
He worked himself into it?
Huh?
Worked himself into it?
Oh, Wow, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, it's funny that you mentioned that, and the blend with Hogan, big Hollywood Hogan. We all know how Hogan, big, and, the story with the grams that he showed up in, 225, said gain 100 pounds, he came back and he was 325 or something, right? He was like 325.
Yeah, like a year.
Yeah, he was 325 for WrestleMania. And I know Kevin Wackles knew him real good from, the gym here in Minneapolis, or Twin Cities Gym, or one of the gyms on Lindell Avenue. And Hulk used to go in there and train. That's how Wackles got into the business through Hulk. They were like buddies when he was here working for Vern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting history. But, yeah, who do you think was the clever guy? I think they both had a good blend, right? But
I think Hogan ultimately learned from Vince.
Yeah, probably so.
But he learned real well, But Vince is going to last longer. Hogan's clawing to hold on.
Exactly.
He's been off TV for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, he's real clever, and he knows how to get a reaction at the building, which is really good at swaying people. And
yep.
Everyone. The one thing that Hogan's got, of course, is that everyone grew up and knows the name. So like for Bischoff to open up the doors for an executive and just go, I've got Hulk Hogan. That means a lot more than to a 20-year-old kid who's buying a wrestling ticket. To them, they're going like, oh, I can get a wrestling company with Hulk Hogan, and wrestling's a big business, you know what I mean? Yep. Wrestling's a booming business because all the newspapers talk about the great wrestling boom.
Yep, that's exactly right.
The one thing with Bischoff, there's another one, he's kind of a Minneapolis guy too.
Yeah.
But with Bischoff, the one thing he does have going for him is he's got the ability to hang with rich people, and every wannabe wrestling promoter has got this idea, hey, if I round up all these money people and start a company, but the one thing is Bischoff apparently is going to pull this one off.
Yeah, but you know something? He learned from the best, and he was their boss, so he got to see, like, behind the curtain, like Orange Book, behind the curtain. Not like Orange Book, but, yeah, they got to see on the inside, like behind the mask, behind the phony who's talking to him. They got to see on the inside what really went on in that strange subculture of professional wrestling.
Tom, this is something Brian and I kind of joke about because, every time you hear an interview and the word steroids comes up, no one in wrestling does steroids anymore. I mean, when you were wrestling, obviously they did, but nobody does now. On the road, and you've got excellent genetics, okay, which, it's just that's the reality. He was Mr. Minnesota and everything like that. Okay. On the road, what can you look like realistically without drugs? And do you think, the physique that...
Can we say the average person or just...
Well, let's go. First of all, an average person can't look like that anyway.
No.
But let's say someone with good genetics, okay?
No.
Can they look like... I don't want to say Luger because they can't. Or Scott Steiner is ridiculous.
No,
okay.
no.
But I'm just talking about like a Bill Goldberg or anything like that. Is that possible, going on the road 300 days? Well, let's say 200 days a year.
I've never met him. I've never met him. I've never, ever met someone, and that's why I can talk what I can talk, because I'll put up a test right now. But, any physical, anything you want to give me, and then genetics for a guy my age, I'll go head-to-head with you. Any sports, whatever you want to think, for all the bumps I've taken. You look on my webpage, you see what I've built up. Okay, steroids, you have to cycle it like anything else, like wrestlers. You build them up, and then they put guys over on the backside. Vince has that formula. WCW was swerved by carnies. They never had the formula. No way, Dave. No. There's no way you can travel that. Drugs got you to the next town to heal your body. Dynamite Kid's book, Dave, that was as honest as you could get.
That was honest.
And then, okay, so then you got guys that are geeks. I've seen guys inject steroids that were old. They were looking for any kind of edge to get through the day using drugs or steroids, okay? The court isn't out on steroids yet. They're a felony. Okay, they're illegal. But what I'm saying is, do they enhance athletic ability?
We know, but who at the top level at the Olympics in any running or power sport?
Yeah.
You know that there's nobody out there competing naturally at the top level. I don't want to say nobody. That may be unfair, but very few.
They know what they're doing. Chemicals are their business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And athletic enhancement, that's their business. No, I don't believe so. I saw a lot of it. And guys would always lie about it, too. They were just embarrassed. But I think guys are on all the time. I think their egos are so caught up. And like you said about Pillman, how hard he worked. And, it's the narcotic action of TV. People get hooked on the pop. Like you said about Terry Funk or Mick Foley, they got hooked on the crowd reaction, much less being recognized in public. I think that's something that's underlooked or never been addressed.
Now, do you think part of the problem with guys in wrestling is that they don't cycle because they're on TV all the time.
Yeah, they're on TV every Monday. They're on TV every Monday night, and you know how that body psychosis where you miss 3 workouts and it's like, I'm small, I want to wear a long sleeve shirt, and these guys got to go out there without a shirt every Monday night.
Yeah, do you know what it's like to hang around some of these guys? I don't mean in a bad way, but I mean, what'd you do? I went to Waffle House, I had the chicken breast, dry toast. I'm going, what? Oh, jeez. I mean, this is how wacky.
But that's what you got to do to stay cut 52 weeks a year, unless you're on something really scary.
Well, or unless you have good genetics. But what I'm saying is the price that these guys pay. That's the whole union deal. Not to rail on the boys, but they're better than that. They should have better self-esteem. What do they have? Low self-esteem. They don't want better for themselves. I mean, Piper. Some of these other guys are willing to talk now. Bret Hart. He seems real honest. Hart was a great guy. I mean, yeah, of course. Yeah, drugs, painkillers, everything. How do you get to sleep? On cue. Drink? I mean, who's a hypocrite going to throw the first knife? I mean, yeah, you're traveling around. I mean, could you do it? Look yourself in the mirror. Could you do that every day? Get up and look good. Every day go to the gym, tan, train. Look at Leatherface. He's desperately clawing to hang on. Poor Madden.
Oh, God. What do you think about all that?
Leatherface. Pillman would love that. And why doesn't Leatherface go to the WWF where he really thinks he's a big star because he's a movie star and he's had 1,600 to 1,800 women? Oh, come on. I saw him. He's no day at the beach. Who's he talking to? Yeah, I'd like to debate him. Yeah, big star you are. Go up to Vince. He couldn't see you. I heard he went up there. He couldn't see him, right? Big star he is in his own mind. Yeah.
He's done good for himself, though. I give him credit, because he was a guy who I thought would never. I mean, I did think Page would make it in wrestling as a manager because he's a good talker.
Yeah. He's a good talker. They can't have my commentary, right? Thank you, Dave. I know. If this is your business, it's not mine. So I'll be the heel. You be good cop, bad cop. I'm bad cop. Okay, let's go
to Mark in New York real quick.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going great.
I just want to say I really enjoy the show. I've been listening since about July. Hello.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much.
I really hear you. I think I have a different kind of viewpoint on the pro wrestling game these days, having not watched it since early Hulk Hogan era.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you guys are talking about Hogan and steroids and all that stuff. It's kind of fun. I got back into it about a year and a half ago when I started. I'm making a wrestling documentary myself, which hopefully is going to be quite a bit different than Beyond the Mat. It's focusing mostly on indies. And I got Johnny Valiant in it as well, who is quite a guy.
He's an interesting character.
Yeah, he's a great guy. You should have him on just to tell his road stories, man. He'll keep you rolling in the aisles for a long time. I guess I just been hearing you guys talking about, Vince marketing to the kids, the sexual situations, and all this kind of stuff. And I just thought I'd share an experience of mine with you when I was shooting at an indie show in New Rochelle. I believe that the kid was probably about, I would say, absolutely no older than 10 years old. And one of the valets was leading her guys out, and this little boy grabs the valet's breast. And everybody was, I saw it, and I was like, wow, man, that's nuts. And I just find it really strange, well, not really strange, but kind of awful that, Vince is playing to this stuff.
Yeah. Well, where do you think he learned that behavior?
I'm sorry?
Where do you think that 10-year-old boy learned that behavior?
Oh, I mean, this behavior, I think, is totally rampant in the culture. I'm certainly not saying that that Vince invented it by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it's really unfortunate that he's aiding and abetting, if you will,
Well,
I think we've established that, Vince McMahon is someone who is going to do what it takes
to make money.
To make money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it comes time to stop and the pressure is great to stop, he will stop.
Yep.
But, he's not going to stop unless he gets, he's got to get slapped in the wrist real hard. And then, grudgingly he'll stop. Yeah, the sponsors. Yeah. And then he'll file a lawsuit, that's right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, ultimately, as long as he can get sponsors and as long as the crowd's on his side, he's going to do it. And It's just the reality of, what is it? It's just a free marketplace, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a problem as far as, the direct marketing to young kids of certain aspects of the product. Not everything, but sometimes I think they've crossed the line many, many times, and they've gotten slapped for it. And like when they get slapped for it, if a sponsor pulls out on its own accord, I mean, I thought that Vince was a real child when Coke pulled out, because Coke pulled out on its own, and then he wrote a nasty letter to Coke going like basically saying, oh, you're in Atlanta, you're in cahoots with WCW, and it's like, well, at that point,
Paranoid.
of course that, that was a little too much.
No.
I think it's interesting because when I started, I mean, I don't have cable, so I just started watching SmackDown again when that came out, and really had no exposure to wrestling for the past, 15 years or so. I caught a little WCW because it was on regular TV when I lived in Florida. So I would watch a couple matches here and there just for, old time's sake, whatever. But I started watching SmackDown again, on a regular basis since it came out. And I was sort of under the impression that when I, hadn't watched wrestling for a long time, I'm like, it has to be changed so much. I'm going to hate it now. It's totally not the same thing as, what I remember, Pedro Morales versus Don Morocco. I mean, that's what I remember.
So that's 1982-ish.
82, 83, at the absolute latest. Bob Backlund and, Ken Patera. That's what I was, like, a total mark for when I was, 12, 13 years old. But I thought it was kind of funny that I put SmackDown on. I'm like, damn, I would have loved this so much more when I was a kid.
Well, because the production
stuff and just all this, I've been like, oh my god, I would have thought this was like the greatest thing ever in the history of the world. So that was kind of a funny little surprise that I got when I started watching again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's I'm more interested now. I think in sort of the politics and the social meaning behind it and what goes on in the business. And just let me ask you my mark question here is whatever happened to Bob Backlund after he lost the title? I remember seeing him on a car on Indy.
He ran for Congress this year,
Massachusetts, and that was about it for him.
He ran for Congress. Bob Backlund wrestled a little bit in Japan, and then he basically retired from wrestling for he worked for Verne for a little while in the AWA. Retired for a long, long time. Did a big comeback as a heel in the WWF, and got a lot of heat. But didn't really last that long. They tried to make him a manager. That didn't really work.
Right.
And now he just ran for Congress.
Yeah,
he's
certainly
still
read about that.
Yeah, he bounces around indies. He doesn't wrestle much because Bob would be 51 years old now.
Yeah, he's definitely early 50s.
Yeah.
Was he? I remember him as being like the most phenomenal wrestler. I mean, this is when I'm 12, 13 years old. Was he a really great worker? Do you think, or?
No. That was a great job of hype that Vince's father did.
Okay. I just remember watching him, a couple of times on TV, and he was.
Yeah, they made him the greatest technical wrestler in the world.
Yeah, he
was
just going and going.
They could sell. I mean, Bob was a good college wrestler.
Yeah.
But Bob, I mean, Tom was a wrestler, but most wrestlers did not consider Bob a good worker at all.
Really?
Bob was just, I don't know what the deal was with Bob. He had a big run. He had a big run.
Like a lot of amateurs. You know what I'm saying? There was no. Wrestling is a very fantastic, flamboyant, long hair, sequined robes, over the top. Some kind of other people come to see. Some fantastic show. The greatest show on earth, like P.T. Barnum. That's what Vince is like. That's, but his dad was an old-timer. That's old school. They could create something out of nothing. And that's what they did. He had amateur, so he could stretch everyone. He could walk and talk the talk. I mean, just like Dynamite Kid, a legit tough guy that could fight for the business like a Harley. But Bob was straight. I heard one time, Martel said, this guy was so hungry, he'd sleep in his car, tie the hood down, or the trunk down, and they found him one time sleeping under, hanging in the closet on gravity boots. I mean, he was an athletic freak, always in shape, straight, no drugs, drinking, anything. But, yeah, he wasn't considered a great worker in the ring as a professional, but he was a good amateur. Rangan had nothing but good things to say about him.
Well, they went to college. They were college teammates.
Exactly.
They were like the Stars at North Dakota State when it was kind of like a Division II powerhouse.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, yeah, he had a good amateur, but see, unfortunately, Brad never had a run like Bob, and, the old-time system of promoters, Vince's father was a prince of a man.
Yeah. With Brad, Vern, I think Vern wanted to promote Brad, kind of like, the Minneapolis real wrestler, because, Vern was kind of a mark for the amateurs.
Sure.
But Brad didn't have the charisma.
Yeah, but no one knew how to enhance it or develop it, or they just wouldn't tell him. You know what I mean? Mentoring, that's what some of these old-timers can do now. Mentor the young guys. They can give back. That's the thing, they can cycle things, It's, you have your day in the sun. I think you wrote it in this last week's pages. You have your time, and that's it. It's a lot of guys, it's not their time anymore.
Yeah.
No one's ever got that's McMahon's formula. He's got it figured out.
Justin from Berlin, Germany. Justin, how you doing?
Dave?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing really good.
Okay. Actually, I'm from Montreal. I am in Berlin at the moment, though.
Yeah.
So
okay.
That's my first question for Tom. What does he think of his Montreal days?
I had a hell of a time there. That's a beautiful city. I really, really had a lot of fun. I liked working for Gino Bravo. It was a beautiful city. I had a fantastic time. Some of my best memories were in Quebec. And
how long were you down there?
Pardon?
How long were you down there?
2 summers. I
summers?
think I worked for like 4 to 6 months, and then another time for about 7 to 8 months. Back in '86 and '85, I think.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was. Really
and Dave, also about Kurt Angle, I'm a huge mark of his, like his in-ring work, his mic skills. But like the way they're building him up, like, isn't he just good? Like he's gonna lose the belt sooner or later. Isn't he gonna be just one of those like Big Show champs where he had the belt, but you don't even notice he has it?
No. I think he's got so much more than all but a few guys in wrestling as far as the whole package. And he's only been in for 2 years. I think he'll be a top guy, until an injury comes or until he just gets old, and he ain't that old.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like this title reign. Like,
well, this title reign. I mean, no one's going to have long title reigns now. Just the nature of pay-per-view and 4 hours of weekly television. I think that you can't have a long-term reign. I mean, I know that
he's in kind of a tough position this year because I think the whole plan was Rock and Austin at WrestleMania. So up until that point, anyone who has the belt is just going to be a transitional guy.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as like,
like the WWF's losing like viewers or their ratings are coming down. Like, where are they losing their views? Is it kids? Is it like where's the demographic? Do you know?
Teenagers.
Is it overall, or is it just like people who didn't really care, hardcore viewers, or?
It's not hot now. It's not hot.
Yeah, well, that would be teenagers because teenagers are the fad ones. Although the teenage ratings are still strong, but it's not hot like it was a year ago.
Yep.
I mean, months ago, not that many months ago, we used to look at this. We're talking 2 months ago, and the ratings were down, and people would write, and deservedly so, and go, okay, the ratings are down, but it really doesn't matter because the buy rates are through the roof and the attendance is through the roof. Well, now we're 2 months later, and the buy rates are starting to show, and the attendance, is now legitimately down a little.
Yeah, they had to pay for the pay-per-view.
Yeah, they had to pay for the pay-per-view, which is something that they haven't done in years. So there is an edge that's come off. I mean, it's not a disaster area. People, there's wrestling companies in the history of this business. Any company ever would kill for a $400 million year, which they just did. So don't cry for them, but they're not at the peak anymore. The peak is over.
Yep, I agree.
Well, thanks a lot, guys, and
thanks for calling from Germany.
No,
no problem.
You have a good
I'm
time
not paying the bill, so it's okay.
Okay, cool.
Germany.
Yeah.
That's great. Cool.
Yeah. Let's go to Vinny in Jersey. Vinny, what's going on?
Yo, Vinny. Speak up.
Dylan in South Carolina. Sorry.
Hello. Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Doing really good.
I want to ask Tom and everybody here a question, Brian, Dave, too. Guys like Nash and Hogan and people like that who basically have gotten by on just name value and how they've been marketed by particular promoters and have been known to play the political game. How do you think guys like that are the stars that are still hanging on, how do you think they're going to affect stars of the future, guys like, The Rock and Triple H? Do you think that attitude is going to rub off on them, the attitude that they can get away with whatever they want, or does Vince run his operation in such a different way that it's never going to be like that?
Vince definitely runs a tighter ship.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You don't see guys going on Vince's television and going into business for themselves to any great degree like they do in WCW and cut their own promo, But then again, part of that too is, change finish. But the other thing though is like when Brian, we've talked about this, privately and on the air. Guys, and we heard it from Juventud Guerrero and we heard from WCW because guys are, go out there for interviews or go out there to do commentary and they're not told what to say. And then when they do that, you can't blame them for what they say. I mean, with Titan, when you're going to go out there and do an interview, I mean, there's a framework of what you're not necessarily scripted word for word, but your points. I mean, if you're going out there and just go, with no points to say, I mean, what's that?
And the thing is, if you ever watch one of those old WWF blooper tapes, I mean, it was always just like retakes on their taped promos. And if you screw up a taped promo, they're gonna retape the thing. Thunder sometimes is like an actual blooper show because they don't retape everything. It's just
last week.
Filmed.
Yeah, talk about last week. What happened there?
Well, they did first of all, it was the Nash and Page promo was like a total riot because, first of all, no one's supposed to mention Scott Hall. Okay, it's just like a company rule because whatever.
Yeah.
Now the production people, for whatever reason, don't know this. So Nash and Page do an interview, and they start talking about Scott Hall, all through the interview. And in the interview, the lights are going, flickering on and off, all the stuff that, usually you would go cut and do over. So then it's over and it's done. And then I think it's Diana Myers in legal, heard about the promo and just goes, wait a minute, Scott Hall can't be mentioned. Their idea was during all of those things where Nash's eye was wandering, he was looking bored, they would show clips of Scott Hall over it. And then all of a sudden they're told, no Scott Hall. So instead of anything else, they put this thing on the air. And you have all of these,
because it was a 7-minute hole, they supposedly had to put it on the air.
So
making the Starcade promo or something to put in there.
They should have just promoted the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, instead they showed this terrible interview, and there's all these sound edits whenever the name of Scott Hall came up, which was probably 25 times in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Also, do you think that maybe Eric Bischoff and Vince McMahon have had their little feud going basically since Eric stole Hogan or whatever? Do you think
he never stole Hogan? That's like the myth of all myths.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is too. But I mean,
no. Do you know the chronology? The chronology. Hulk Hogan quit the WWF in August of 1993.
Yeah, because and then the trial and everything went down. Wouldn't he like
right? Hulk Hogan started in WCW in July of 1994. He spent 1 year wrestling in Japan and doing Thunder in Paradise. He was long gone from the WWF before any negotiations ever started. He stole him from nobody. If he stole him from anyone, it was from New Japan Pro Wrestling. He didn't really steal him from them either because they only used him on big shows.
Well, that's how Vince portrayed it because he likes to get himself over as the underdog in all this,
The stealing of Hogan is it's chronologically it doesn't work. And then as far as stealing, I mean, if you're going to go through history, Vince McMahon built his company by stealing Junkyard Dog and Hulk Hogan and every one of Vern's talents.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying there's Jesse Ventura, all of them. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. But you can't cry over how you built your company. It was the same way.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
right. my question is, do you think maybe Bischoff wants to be Vince McMahon so much that he's just trying
Absolutely. Absolutely, Bischoff wants to be Vince McMahon.
From day one, when he took over the ship, that he just wanted to recreate the entire image of Vince McMahon and just put his little, pretty boy spin on things and take it from there. But he's so clueless as to do it. He has no idea what he's doing. He
wanted to be the '90s Vince McMahon. Remember when Eric was out there and going Vince McMahon is the Vern Gagne of the '90s? Whoa. I mean, Bischoff. You look back at some of those articles, and they used to love to, these reporters would love to print it. When Vince, the Eric quotes, because Eric did some of the craziest quotes about Vince McMahon, if you really look back in time on it. But the whole thing was that Eric wanted to be the king of wrestling, and for a short while he was. And then he wasn't. And
right,
Tuesdays...
House built on sand.
And then Tuesdays all of a sudden ceased to be fun again.
Yeah. But just like
with
their last pay-per-view, right? Didn't they have weak ratings on Monday night, so there wasn't anything interesting that happened on the pay-per-view, right? Didn't I read in your sheet that they went down?
Look, WCW, their ratings have been down for a year now.
But I mean, after the pay-per-view, even isn't that a telltale sign, right?
Yeah, it used to be you'd get 0.3 of a point bump from a pay-per-view, but WCW hasn't gotten that in a long time. No one cares about their pay-per-views.
Exactly.
I mean,
Tuesdays were still fun for Vince.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Let's go to Scott in Winnipeg. Scott, what's going on?
Hi there, guys. Great show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question for Tom and basically for everybody. Something I've wondered about for a while is how, if you're working with a foreign wrestler like Tom's worked in Japan, how do you call spots? Do you work it all out ahead of time, especially if you don't speak the same language?
They have real long finishes over in Japan.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, they come with a finish. They come to you. Japanese come out of respect to you. You have finish,
and then you tell the referee, and then he goes back, and then they come up with what they want, and then they tell you the spots: finish, drop kick, turnbuckle, hikamu, lariat, chop. Another turn. It's a real long thing. But they also watch their product, and these young kids, that's the way WCW should have run it. Promotion through the ranks, a meritocracy. Okay.
So, if you have to improvise during a match,
well, clothesline. You just put on a show of moves over there. Drop kick, clothesline. I mean, they understand English, and that's why they used to have a trade. Like Kawada went to Montreal, and I spent a lot of time with him. Okay, and Martel was the promoter, bought into the office up there, and so Toshiaki Kawada had to go away from Japan when he was a young boy. You pay your dues. That's how they seasoned you, like you season a wood pile. That's how they season their wrestlers. Okay, and they build respect for the business, like Vern Gagne. You pay your dues. But it's all changed now because they let some people in that were not trained right. They didn't have the right discipline.
Watching Japan take off and hear referees counting in English, is English sort of the language that is used between foreign wrestlers if you're working with an English-speaking?
Well, sure, because we don't speak Japanese.
Yeah.
They kind of learn both, and sometimes in school they take it in classes. I mean, that's a whole different society over there. In Tokyo they have, how many, 20 million people, and they all get along.
They don't have crime they don't have crime or anything like to the level that we have, or at least they don't have the murder rates exceedingly low over there.
No, they bow to you. I mean, they're very respectful. That's just the way it is. Okay, it's a different ball game. If they don't get away with, they would never disrespect their office or their family's name or anything like the American wrestlers do here. I mean, it's unbelievable.
You know that there's 48, because we had Fumi Saito on the show on Monday, there's 48 wrestling companies in Tokyo.
48?
48 wrestling companies in Tokyo.
What does that tell you?
I knew there were a lot, but I never...
Japan.
I never counted...
I'm just saying, think about the size of Japan.
Exactly, it's an island.
Yeah.
But
it's not even that, geographically, it's probably about the size of California. As far as, square miles, it's far more populated. It's got a lot of people, but, it's like, wrestling probably comes within driving distance. Tokyo, oh my God, it's got to be there every night.
Yeah.
Korakuen Hall runs four shows a week.
Wow.
It's too much, though. That's, even, by saying that, it's like, it is too much. That's why it's, Japanese wrestling is not as strong as it once was also, because there's too much.
Yeah, oversaturation. Yeah, just like what happened in the United States, two companies now, there's no place to go,
There's a lot. There's a place to go, but it's just hard to draw because there's so much competition. Here, you got Vince, who's just super powerful, and then, God, it's tough. One of the you talk about Montreal, and we talked before about Portland and everything.
Yeah.
As far as your career, don't you think that was really, as far as learning the business before you went to the big time, it was really good for you to go to those places before you came back to Minneapolis or before you went to Atlanta?
Sure, you get a good reality check. I should have stayed in Portland longer, but see, the thing that people always rail on me on the internet or everything I've ever read that I was a nomad, or I always had better opportunities or better promises for spots/money to go to Portland, because Vern had nothing for me. They had me in a neck collar one time. In Montreal, I learned. Everything made me better, every experience. It's like life. The older you get, the more knowledge you attain. And it's like wrestling. I should have stayed in Portland for a full year. They never beat me. I never had a promoter, treat me so good. But Rick Martel made the call, and he was my friend also, and he bought into the promotion in Montreal, which the Rougeaus had just left. So I felt obligated to help him out, and he was in a bind, and he put pressure on me. Okay, it's friends you meet in the business, and then, it's how things work out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that was great. That's the best learning experience, and that's what they've lost in wrestling now. That's really become a problem.
Well, the one thing...
Not so much for WWF, but...
No, not
WCW.
They know what they're doing, though.
Yeah, but like having said that, now you were talking about you were in Portland, you had the opportunity to go to Montreal,
yeah.
And if you had pursued it, you probably could have gone to whether it was Tennessee or Florida or whatever.
Sure.
It was there was a lot of opportunity to go places and learn different styles, and again, right now, that's why I say that aspect of wrestling is real tough on the younger guys, because with the WCW younger guys, we're watching them their Portland years on national television when they're not quite ready for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like David Flair. It's too bad. It's Dustin Rhodes. He had the most. Eric Watts. The fathers want to get their sons in the business, but where do you get that seasoning? Where do you get that nightly work? I don't care if it's in front of 50, 200 people. You learn what people like. You get better at your craft. It's like practice.
You know, it's like
the worst thing. You know, the funny thing is that Bill Watts ended up being the worst thing ever for Eric, because Eric probably would have made it if he had gone somewhere for a couple of years.
Yep.
But he was that name was so destroyed by that over push at the beginning that he never made it in the business because of it.
Yeah. Well, I've read an article about his dad saying, I didn't push him, I didn't get him a good contract. The only one he beat was Arn Anderson, but Arn wanted to do the spot. Well, Arn worked Bill because his contract was up. Sure, he's going to put his hat in the ring that he'll put his kid over. Look at how you look at the tapes, how guys flew around for Dustin, for Arn flew around for Eric Watts. I mean, the daddy's boys, and I don't mean to be negative, but I mean that's the way it worked. But yeah, he killed Eric, and Eric's a really nice kid. I mean, yeah, he put a lot of steam on him. You know what guys like myself, like Pillman, really thought in the locker room about DDP being Bischoff's neighbor?
Yeah.
DDP gave Jim Hurd a tape of Eric Bischoff from the AWA to get him in. That's the history, what goes on in wrestling. Okay? Buddy, behind the scenes, payback, whatever. It's not pushing talent necessarily, but poor Eric. Eric has never made it, has he?
No, Eric never made it, and a lot of the wrestlers really respect him now, but there's just that name Eric Watts.
Yeah.
He just never got the break afterwards.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And now it's hard to get a break now.
Are the best, right? We're strong.
Yeah. It's the strongest, yeah. Tom, we are totally out of time. I want to thank you very much for doing the show. We've got to do this again. This is a very entertaining 2 hours. And thank Brian and Mike and Al. And also tomorrow at 6, we're going to have Randy Hales of Power Pro Wrestling, so we should have a lot of fun then, too. We'll see you at 6.